A mysterious chain of events that occurred in the north of British Columbia has sparked interest not only in Canada, but around the world. Who could possibly be bothered by loving tourists, a couple of teenagers, and an elderly botany professor? And how could these people be connected in any way? The narrative unfolds in northern British Columbia, Canada, during the sweltering month of July in 2019. This region, renowned for its breathtaking vistas that extend to the borders of Yukon and Alaska, is enveloped by forests, valleys, volcanic rock landscapes, and mountain ranges. It presents travelers with a plethora of outdoor pursuits, ranging from trekking and angling to skiing and open water swimming. A young duo, eager to embrace all that British Columbia has to offer, embarked on their eagerly anticipated getaway to revel in the wilderness's splendor. Chynna Deese, 24, and Lucas Fowler, 23, were the embodiment of youthful adventure and freedom. Lucas, hailing from a large family in Sydney, Australia, and the son of New South Wales Chief Police Inspector, had cultivated a love for travel early on, which eventually became his life's purpose. As he matured, his ambition was to explore as many diverse places on Earth as possible. Engaging in activities like hiking, camping, surfing, and swimming was integral to Lucas's lifestyle. His quest for adventure led him on a 2-year globe-trotting backpacking journey. In 2017, during a stop in Croatia, Lucas encountered another significant passion, Chynna Deese, a North Carolinian studying in Europe and working on a vineyard farm to fund her travels. Over a few years, Deese managed to visit 13 countries. Their shared passion for exploration bonded them so tightly that they quickly became a pair, with their families also forming a close bond. Their loved ones were convinced that the couple's relationship would thrive beyond the mundane, filled with bliss and overcoming any hurdles. Stephen, Lucas's father, remarked that Chynna became a part of their family the moment she captured Lucas's heart. Both sets of parents rejoiced in their children's partnership, recognizing them as an ideally matched pair. Despite the considerable distance between them, Chynna and Lucas maintained a strong connection, spending hours on the phone reminiscing about past adventures and eagerly planning future ones. During their 2 years together, they explored Central and South America, Japan, and Southeast Asia. They celebrated Christmas in America with Chynna's family before Lucas took a job at a ranch in British Columbia. Now, with a visa in hand, the vast distance that once seemed daunting was no longer an insurmountable barrier, making it much easier for them to bridge the gap. Several months later, the duo planned a modest vacation together. Chynna reunited with Lucas, and they resolved to explore the provinces of Western Canada that summer. The pair were keen to visit Canada's national parks, aiming to conclude their journey in Alaska. They had been looking forward to this expedition for months, anticipating the joy of being together again. Fowler had fixed up his blue 1986 Chevrolet minivan, and now they embarked on their adventure. On the night of July 13, 2019, the couple made a stop at a service station in Fort Nelson, British Columbia. Security footage showed them inseparable, oblivious to their surroundings. These clips would later be scrutinized repeatedly by both law enforcement and family members. Chynna consistently updated her mother, Sheila, on their trip's progress. In her final text, she mentioned they would soon be unreachable to keep her mother from worrying. Roughly 200 miles from the service station, their vehicle encountered a pothole and broke down. This occurred on July 14th along the Alaska Highway, also known as Highway 97, near the sought-after Liard River Hot Springs tourist spot. As Lucas lifted the hood to diagnose the issue, another vehicle pulled up. The driver, Charles, noticed their malfunctioning van and offered assistance. Yet Fowler, with a smile, assured him they had everything under control. He stated his intent to attempt repairs and, failing that, to call for a tow truck the next day upon reaching an area with phone service. Charles mentioned he'd be camping with friends a few miles away and would pass by again the next day, offering help if needed. After exchanging goodbyes, he drove off. The lovers paused at the roadside, bringing along some provisions, which helped them serenely face a scenario likely to frazzle many. Yet, They savored each moment of their voyage, even these unforeseen and unfortunate events. Around midnight of that day, while the travelers were still fussing over their blue van, a road repair worker happened by. She spotted a bearded individual conversing with Chynna and Lucas. From a distance, their dialogue seemed fraught, with the bearded man noticeably perturbed by something. The worker did not intervene, however. This roadside incident left her with an uneasy feeling for some reason. She later recollected that the van's right side doors were wide open, and a gray automobile of another individual was parked nearby. On July 15th at 6:20 a.m., a trucker on Highway 97 spotted an alarming scene ahead. Drawing nearer, he was horrified to find two individuals lying face down in a ditch. It was Chynna and Lucas, positioned about 9 feet from their blue van and approximately 13 feet away from each other. They were unresponsive and cold to the touch, exhibiting no signs of life. The trucker then took to the road, desperately signaling to oncoming drivers for assistance, imploring them to make emergency calls. Following this, the police were alerted by a wave of calls about the event, with law enforcement arriving on site at 7:20 a.m. The responding officers observed the trucker attempting to navigate through the distressing situation he had encountered. It was determined that Chynna and Lucas had succumbed to gunshot wounds, as indicated by the autopsy showing entry and exit points. The van's doors remained ajar, with its rear window smashed. Close by, investigators found 5 spent bullet casings and Dez's mobile phone, though Fowler's mobile remained unaccounted for. Just after 9 a.m., Charles, along with other vacationers who had interacted with the couple the previous day, returned as they had promised, only to be met with police barricades, leading to disbelief at the grim development. While the police withheld specifics, the proximity of the assailant became a growing worry. In an effort to gather evidence, detectives appealed to anyone who had traveled this segment of the Alaska Highway 97 from the evening of July 14th to the next morning, to share any dashcam footage with the authorities. The heinous murder of an Australian man and an American woman in Canada quickly escalated into a high-profile international case, attracting extensive media coverage. Promptly, Fowler's father, a distinguished police official in Australia, reached out for details about the catastrophic event that befell his son and his partner. Canadian detectives clarified that this incident appeared to be an isolated event, emphasizing their commitment to capturing the culprit as a paramount concern. As whispers about the Alaska Highway 97 event began circulating, a bystander who had witnessed Chynna and Lucas conversing with a bearded individual approached the authorities with a description. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police then produced a composite sketch from this account and circulated it through the media. This development struck a chord in Australia, leading Australian law enforcement to extend their assistance to their Canadian counterparts. They aimed to support their fellow officer, Stephen Fowler, grieving his son's loss. Consequently, the commissioner dispatched 2 detectives to aid in the probe and foster liaison. In a separate account, another individual, who had pulled over in the vicinity for a brief rest, reached out to the police. He recounted that, shortly after he stopped, a compact van pulled up some 150 feet away. From the van, a man wielding a rifle emerged from the passenger side and began advancing towards him, weapon poised. At the same time, the truck he was in started to reverse in his direction. Fearful for his safety, the witness accelerated and fled the scene, unable to identify the individuals or muster the courage to investigate further. With the inquiry still in its nascent phase, it remained uncertain whether Lucas and Chynna were specifically targeted or had merely been at the wrong place at an inopportune time. Up to that moment, there was no evidence linking their demise to any other criminal activities in the region. The authorities characterized the incident as an isolated occurrence within northern British Columbia. The tragic demise of the young couple plunged their families into profound sorrow. They had journeyed across the globe, and it was unfathomable that 2 young lovers, yet to experience the joys of marriage, would have their lives cut short so abruptly. Stephen Fowler, actively serving as a police officer, alongside his Canadian peers, dedicated their efforts to unraveling the case's specifics and bringing the culprits to justice. However, this sorrowful event marked the onset of a chain of occurrences that captured global attention. Merely 5 days subsequent, on July 19th, another disturbing incident took place approximately 300 miles from where Deese and Fowler's bodies were discovered, close to Dease Lake in British Columbia. A charred van was found, with its license plate sufficiently intact for a database match. The vehicle was registered to 19-year-old Cam McLeod, who had embarked on a road trip with his best friend, 18-year-old Briar Schmegelski. Both hailing from Vancouver Island and co-workers at Walmart, they had recently resigned from their positions to pursue job opportunities in Yukon. Departing on July 12th, their parents described their venture as impromptu, yet supportive of their son's plans. Their last known whereabouts were at a locale known as Jade City, where they paused for coffee. The proprietor recalled their visit, noting no peculiarities about their demeanor or any apparent troubles. Now the pair had disappeared, leaving behind their incinerated vehicle. In close proximity to the teenagers' scorched van, roughly a mile away, a deceased man with gunshot injuries was found, bereft of any identification. Authorities disseminated a sketch and a description of the man, presumed to be between 50 and 60 years old, sporting a large gray beard. Despite the considerable distance, almost an 8-hour drive from where Lucas and Chynna's bodies were located, there lingered the possibility of a link between these incidents. Additionally, a segment on the 48 Hours show touched upon the notorious and isolated stretch known as the Highway of Tears, highlighting that over the past 40 years, at least 18 women had either vanished or been discovered deceased along this route. In the midst of piecing together the connections among these unfolding events, the victims' friends and family members were desperate for clarity. As law enforcement intensified their efforts to locate the vanished youths, Chynna and Lucas's relatives arrived in Canada, confronting the grim duty of bringing their loved ones home. Alan Schmegelski, father of Briar, shared that his son's final message hinted at sporadic communication due to unreliable cellular service. He harbored concerns that the boys might have stumbled upon a crime scene and, as a result, met with misfortune themselves. He emphasized that they were virtuous individuals who had steered clear of trouble prior to this. Cam McLeod's last communication with his family was on July 17th, informing them of his and Briar's arrival in Yukon, their intended destination. The rationale behind their continued journey remained enigmatic, spawning ever-increasing queries. Within days, a trio of lives were claimed, and 2 young men went missing under dire circumstances. The publication of the third victim's sketch prompted a call from a woman named Helen, identifying the depicted individual as potentially her husband, 64-year-old Leonard Dyke. Leonard had embarked on a hiking excursion shortly before and maintained regular contact with Helen and their kids until the night of July 18th, after which all communication ceased. While awaiting DNA confirmation, the authorities were persuaded they had identified Leonard. Renowned for his dedication as a husband, his devotion as a father, and his reputation as a respected botany lecturer at the University of British Columbia, Leonard was beloved by his students for his enthusiastic approach to science. His ability to vivify plant studies encouraged many to pursue further discoveries. Leonard's remarkable sense of humor, transforming even the most mundane lectures into captivating narratives, along with his hobbies like drawing, writing, playing the guitar, and his passion for the outdoors, were cherished aspects of his personality. Despite his ease in addressing large student groups, Leonard was notably reserved and introverted in his personal life, which partly explained his fondness for solitary treks. Leonard had recently celebrated his birthday on July 16th. With a lightweight camping stove, provisions, a tent, and his Toyota, he set out, eager to immerse himself in nature. He expressed to his wife his hopes of either photographing a grizzly bear or deepening his understanding of the wilderness. On July 21st, video evidence from Meadow Lake, Saskatchewan, surfaced, significantly altering the course of the investigation. The footage showcased a gray 2011 Toyota, owned by 64-year-old Leonard Dyke, a university lecturer in botany, being driven by Cam McLeod and Briar Schmegelski, the previously thought to be missing teenagers. The video captured Cameron and Breyer purchasing black tape, later used to obscure parts of the car in an ill-fated attempt at camouflage. Subsequent to a thorough investigation of their charred van, conducted under safe conditions, law enforcement discovered ammunition matching that found at both crime scenes. This discovery led the Royal Canadian Mounted Police to issue a stunning public announcement, soliciting assistance in apprehending the suspects linked to the recent Northern British Columbia incidents. Cam and Breyer were reclassified from missing persons to prime suspects in the homicides of 3 individuals. Contrary to the earlier narrative, where both teenagers were the subjects of widespread concern and hopes for their safety, they were now identified as the perpetrators behind the tragic deaths of Lucas, Chynna, and Leonard. Cam was duly licensed for the acquisition and storage of firearms, and prior to their departure from Vancouver Island, they had procured a semi-automatic SKS rifle along with 20 rounds of ammunition. Just before the authorities publicized the manhunt for the 2 teens implicated in grave offenses, Cameron and Breyer underwent a routine alcohol inspection by security personnel in Split Lake, Manitoba. Found to be sober and without alcohol, they were released, unbeknownst to the officers that they were engaging with fugitives. Remarkably, the teens evaded capture, leaving their exact location at that juncture a matter of speculation. The next day, on July 23rd, inhabitants of Manitoba stumbled upon a gray Toyota, which was also discovered burned in a wooded area. Adjacent to the vehicle, remnants of partially consumed pork chops, cookware, orange peels, keys, matches, and assorted tools were found. The car's license plate was traced back to Leonard Dyke, and subsequent DNA testing confirmed the grim anticipation of his wife Helen, identifying the 3rd casualty as her spouse. Within 2 days, the law enforcement escalated their efforts, issuing arrest warrants against the duo and formally naming them as suspects in the ruthless slaying of 3 individuals. The manhunt converged on a small community named Gillam, close to the location of Leonard Dyke's charred vehicle. Gillam, with a population of fewer than 1,500 people, is reachable by a singular roadway, making it the strategic epicenter for the police operation. The vicinity was thoroughly sealed off, with local authorities urging the populace to remain vigilant, secure their homes continuously, and venture outside only when absolutely necessary. Search units diligently canvassed the surrounding terrain in an exhaustive sweep. Upon learning of his son's implication in a string of atrocious acts from the news, Breyer's father, Alan, was plunged into disbelief. In a parallel development, Cam's girlfriend reached out to the police, conveying a text message from him declaring his non-return. In Gillam, law enforcement was convinced that, bereft of transportation, and with the global community's eyes trained on them, the young fugitives were likely concealed within the vicinity. The police presence in the town surged from a handful to a robust force of officers patrolling the streets around the clock. The search operation, extending over a week, incorporated military drones, helicopters, canine units, and a substantial human contingent. Yet, as no evidence of their whereabouts emerged, a portion of the search resources was scaled back. The families of both teenagers issued heartfelt appeals for their return, urging them to surrender so matters could be resolved collectively. Alan Schmigelski, however, harbored fears that his son might seek an end in a police standoff, envisioning a tragically heroic demise, a notion that deeply distressed him. In an unexpected turn, the Bear Clan Patrol, a community vigilance group, reported sighting 2 lanky figures scavenging near a landfill, then fleeing into the forest. This occurred in York Landing, situated nearly 80 miles from the primary search zone, though this lead ultimately proved fruitless. Meanwhile, the residents of the tranquil community yearned for the conclusion of this ordeal, anxious for a return to normalcy after being on high alert for a week. Billy Beardy, the discoverer of Leonard Dyke's charred car and an expert in the local geography, played a pivotal role in the search effort. He practically spearheaded the search teams, guiding them through the terrain and suggesting strategic search locations. While navigating the Nelson River's banks aboard boats, the search party found Cam's backpack, containing ammunition, his wallet, and apparel, along with Leonard's toiletry bag and a sleeping bag. Billy observed that these items appeared intentionally abandoned, not merely washed up ashore, indicating that the teenagers, now on foot and possibly fatigued, were discarding non-essential items. The area's challenging terrain, characterized by marshlands, dense insect populations, and the presence of bears, compounded by intense heat, made survival exceedingly difficult. Billy remarked that venturing into such hostile environments unaided and uninformed was virtually suicidal, as even local residents steered clear of these formidable landscapes. On August 2nd, the search operation's scope included aerial surveillance over the Nelson River's banks, where a damaged boat was detected. Billy, entrusted with navigating the jet boats carrying a team from the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, embarked on another journey down the river. During this patrol, a raven's abrupt descent into a coastal gully piqued his curiosity, hinting at the presence of carrion. This intuitive observation proved pivotal when, on August 7, 2019, exactly at the spot Billy had marked due to the raven's activity, law enforcement discovered human remains. In a dense thicket near a stream by the Nelson River, close to where the teenagers' burned vehicle was located in Gillum, lay the bodies of Cam McLeod, 19, and Briar Schmigelski, 18, marking the culmination of a nationwide manhunt nearly 2,000 miles from the saga's inception. For over half a day, Billy Beardy was instrumental in facilitating the movement of police and forensic experts across the river, acknowledged by officers as indispensable to their efforts. The timing of the duo's deaths was unclear, but the forensic examination concluded that Cam had fatally shot Briar and then himself, presumably in fulfillment of a mutual pact. Found near Cam's body was one rifle, with another still clasped in his hands. Additionally, a digital camera owned by Leonard Dyke was discovered in proximity, housing 6 video recordings and 3 photographs, including one of Briar brandishing a semi-automatic rifle and a selfie of Cam. In the initial video, the teenagers confessed to all 3 murders without delving into their motives. Briar, addressing the camera in a subsequent clip, disclosed their intention to flee via the Nelson River, albeit contemplating suicide due to the formidable currents. A later video saw them vacillating, plotting to continue their killing spree across Europe or Africa by boat. Nonetheless, subsequent recordings reverted to their original resolution to end their lives, with a request for cremation upon discovery. The discovery of the videos left the authorities to characterize the footage as chilling and devoid of empathy. Briar's father, reeling from the revelations, expressed a desire to view the recordings firsthand. The police assessed that both youths were complicit and willingly participated in their actions, without clear evidence of a dominant influencer. Despite intense public curiosity and media scrutiny, the decision was made not to release the footage, respecting the victims' families and preventing the glorification of the perpetrators' actions, which could potentially spur similar incidents. The investigation uncovered disturbing facets of Briar's character, including a fascination with Nazi ideology and a collection of related memorabilia, alongside a long-standing interest in weaponry. Alan Schmigelski, Briar's father, recounted how his son became increasingly withdrawn, turning to online content and video games for comfort post-divorce, seldom engaging socially or expressing his emotions. Briar had even speculated with friends about the real-life application of scenarios encountered in video games, displaying a troubling enthusiasm. Cam's relatives were dumbfounded, unable to reconcile the actions attributed to the gentle and respectful young man they knew. Both families grappled with profound regret over their failure to recognize the dark path their sons had embarked on. The summer of 2019 witnessed an unprecedented manhunt across Canada, culminating in an enigmatic close with no discernible motives or explanations forthcoming. Billy Beardy emerged as a key figure in the resolution of the case, later receiving recognition from the Keewatin Tribal Council for his pivotal role in the search efforts. Honored with a star blanket and an eagle feather, he was celebrated as a community stalwart. Beardy's alert response to the Ravens' activity underscored his invaluable contribution, without which the pursuit might have prolonged indefinitely. This tragic sequence of events, resulting in the loss of 5 lives, leaves a lasting imprint of sorrow. The families of those lost hope for their loved ones to be remembered, not for the manner of their passing, but for their lives filled with joy, inspiration, and resolve. This is the end of the story. Like the video and leave your thoughts in the comments. This was Jeremy. See you soon.